Welcome to my podcast, Actual Leigh. This is the continuation of last week's conversation. Let's dive right back in. Stephen King books and short stories, and when they get put on TV, sometimes they're hella warped from what they originally were, right?
Oh yeah.
And I could hate them, or I can just relax and go along with what people, a lot of times Stephen King had fun with it too. So it's like it's just storytelling. I'm here for the ride.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if it's done well, it's like because you can tell when a remake is just a money grab and
Right.
it's just bland and there's no imagination to it. They're just retelling the story, rehashing. But yeah, no. And I find that like with Stephen King and some other movies like based on books and whatnot, I actually find I enjoy the movie more if I haven't read the book
I can see that.
because I don't know what's missing.
Yeah.
So nothing is pissing me off, you know.
Right.
Um, but then it's what's interesting then is actually going back and reading the book after watching the movie actually makes the movie better
Right.
because now I have all of that background information that I didn't have during the movie that maybe I thought I wanted. And then there's things that they had to leave out for time and things like that. It fills in those holes.
Yeah.
Now, there are some that I'm like, what the hell? You
Yeah.
know?
There's some that they just didn't like Under the Dome. They just fucked that. And honestly, like that's one of the few that I just was like, I'm not even sure I'm gonna keep watching because the characters were so distasteful that like we ended up
Mhm.
watching all the way through, my son and I, but it was like it jumped the shark in a way where like it didn't it's like it doesn't they changed like the basis of the dome, and that's fine, but it didn't the people were just assholes, and it was like it wasn't enjoyable to watch. But like I watched Mr. Mercedes before I read the book. Most things I've read because I started reading Stephen King really young, so there wasn't much
Mhm.
opportunity for me
Yeah,
to
me too.
you know um and then I went back and read Mr. Mercedes and the subsequent books, not maybe like 6 months ago, and it was really the Mr. Mercedes series was done very true to the book, which I don't
Mm.
ever expect that. I totally just go with whatever, right? But it was surprising how spot on the series was, and really the
Yeah.
only things that were missing were sort of like the internal dialoguing stuff that they didn't include. So you got more insight into what was going on with the characters' emotions and
Yeah.
stuff. But that was really cool. And there's the 1963 one with the time travel. I haven't read that. I think that's based on a short story. I haven't read that one yet.
Mm. Oh yeah,
Um,
the
but the TV show I really enjoyed
yeah.
it. It was really well done.
Yeah. What was your first Stephen King book? Do you remember?
Firestarter.
Get out.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up. Are you serious?
Yeah.
That was mine.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Holy
It
shit.
was, I don't know. I don't remember why because it was on my mom's bookshelf, and I don't remember why that's the one that I picked up, but I remember just it was fucking enthralling, just being pulled into, and of course it's a little kid. I was like 7. So I
Yeah.
could just plug myself into this little girl and be like, oh, if I had those powers, and
Yeah.
just yeah, it really, you know,
That is so
stuck in
funny.
there.
That
That
is
was
so funny.
yours?
Yeah,
That's
that
so
was my
cool.
first
That's so
Stephen King
cool.
book. Yeah. No, that and I that one it was one that I snuck it into my library borrowing because my mother never would have allowed me to get it because she knew about Stephen King. And uh I ended up uh it was during the summer and I ended up just outside reading the book all day long.
Yeah.
And it was that was my first real experience with Stephen King. And
I
I've
think that's
gone
a pretty
through so
safe
much.
one to start with.
I think so.
You
If I'd
know,
started with Pet Cemetery, that would have been a problem.
yeah. I think Four Seasons was the short story collection was my second one.
Yes.
And there were
Yep.
some
The
things in
Skeleton
there
Crew was my
that,
second one.
yeah, there
Yep.
was, yeah. And I read it when I was 11. I read it
Oh,
twice. I read it
wow.
two times in a row. It was 1,128 pages.
Yep.
Somebody gave it to me, and my mom she never minded that I read. She actually signed the thing so I could get the grown-up books from the library and stuff. But
Mhm.
yeah, I love, oh, it was like, that was the closest thing to having like a childhood was like the summer in that book where the kids are just out playing and like before it gets, before the trauma part comes in and they
Yeah.
just have that, like that was, like all the trauma stuff to me, I just related to. Like I related
Right.
to these kids having trauma and abuse. And to me, the fact that the alien, like, um, took advantage of that and saw ways to get into these people's psyche, that was like all logical to me. It wasn't even scary. I was just like, absolutely, right? But like the way he described, like, and the lighting the farts on fire and just all of that was just magical and glittery to me. And
Oh, yeah.
it was, and I hung on to that because I never had that experience as a kid, like getting to hang out with a
Yeah.
bunch of kids. So I hung on to that description, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and I was so mad at the TV adaptation when it came out. I was so mad at that. I love Tim
It's
Curry,
just,
but the
I do
rest of
too.
it was shit. He was awesome. The rest of it was like I was, and I have said that I'm not normally like that, but that it felt wrong, right? It didn't. That's the thing that like matters the most to me is does it have that that feeling, right? And if you're going to
Hmm.
change a feeling, it needs to be cohesive. And it wasn't. It was off. And the new ones have that feeling,
Yeah.
right? I wish it
Yeah.
had Tim Curry, but that's okay. It had I was very happy when I watched it that it conveyed the thing that the book
Hmm.
conveyed. It didn't matter
Yeah.
that little details were different and whatever. It
Yeah.
had the vibe.
I didn't read it until 10 years ago. Yeah. And then The Stand was the same way. They were just so
Bit
um
big,
and
long.
they were so intimidating. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the he also, I mean, I've read so many I certainly have some gaps, but I have read so many of his books. And I remember when somebody said to me, you got to read The Dark Tower, like the whole series. And I sat down and I read it, and it took me almost a year to get through it, partly because there's certain points where, like, when Father Callahan comes into it, I went back and I read Salem's Lot,
Yeah.
um, and realizing how much of his stuff was tied into that.
Yeah.
And getting to the end of it, and I know so many people hated the ending. I loved it. I thought
Yeah, I
the
didn't
ending was absolutely genius.
yeah, I
But
didn't mind it. I also I liked the that multiverse vibe, right? It's
mhm,
just
mhm,
like, I read the first like four and then there weren't anymore. And so then I had to go
mhm,
back and reread them when the rest came. I
yep,
just was like, okay, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait. It was like the same with this fantasy series I was reading that like I had to wait for the rest of the books to come out because I was like, the gap is too long. I won't remember.
right, yep,
And
same.
yeah, I'm finishing up You Like It Darker right now, which is a collection of stories. And one of
Oh,
the
okay.
stories is one of the short stories is about the husband of the woman that was in Cujo.
Oh,
And it's a very he doesn't say it outright, but it gets explained, through him remembering stuff from his earlier in his life because he's like in his 70s. And I really enjoyed that. I just thought it was cool that he kind of was like, here's what happened to this person who was connected to this person that went through this horrible thing. And you kind of get to find out what happened to her throughout her life after that horrible thing. And I don't, it was cool. It was very satisfying.
yeah. Oh, yeah. And now it's like, going and you end up seeing how much of his stuff is all interlocked. I am on this quest to annoy Stephen King on social media enough that he will answer my question. He'll tell me if I'm right about the ending and what the actual series is about, because it's like it's driving me crazy. And some people, when I tell them, they think it's, they're like, oh, that makes sense. And some people go, yeah, I hated the ending and I don't like your ending either. I'm like, okay, fine. But yeah,
So what
yeah,
was it? What is it?
you want to know what I think?
Yeah.
So I feel like the entire series is about a writer's responsibility to his characters, and also to the story. So like when Jake dies in The Gunslinger and then he dies again, it he recognized that that was required for the story. Probably didn't want to kill Jake, but he had to go. He had to die for the push of the story. It's also so it's the writer and his creation and his responsibility to that creation and the story, but also his responsibility to his audience. Um, and I think that's where him putting himself in to the series factored in. But it also is this idea of all of these things of the imagination, in Wolves of the Kala, where you've got literally have lightsabers and golden snitches and all this stuff, you know. But at the end, when he finally gets to the top of the tower and goes through the door, and the next line you read is the man in black fled across the desert and the gunslinger followed.
Yeah.
Um, to me, that signals obviously Ka is a wheel. It's that cycle starting over again. But who starts that cycle? We do.
Hmm.
Every time we open up the gunslinger and
Hmm.
start reading, we send Roland on that journey. And because it's such a journey where him and his friends suffer severely and die, and he loses his fingers and all of you are choosing, you've read it already, you are choosing to put them through that suffering again. And to me, that's what's that whole thing is, that cycle. And it's that the idea that every time we open up a book, we're sending these characters on this journey for better or for worse. Um, and if you get really invested into it, you like your responsibility is like you have to keep reading. You have to keep reading so that the story moves forward, so that these characters are not stagnant, because you almost have a responsibility. Once you've sent them on that journey, you have to finish it. Um, and it's like I said, that idea of picking up a book that you've read before, you are literally starting the wheel over again. Um, and I just want to say, am I right? Did I get it? You know, but I have so far been unsuccessful.
I got like goosebumps while you're explaining that.
See,
It's
and
like
that tells me that I'm right.
but here's the thing is I can see that being right conceptually, even if that wasn't his intent. Like that's
Mhm.
like if that wasn't directly what his reasoning was, it still makes perfect sense. It also makes me
Yeah.
think of The Never Ending Story. I don't know if you ever read that book.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, but it makes me think of that because there's that kind of relationship between the reader and the story, and you know,
Well, and the symbol with the snakes, that whole idea of the cycle, and
yeah.
yeah, no, and I think if you haven't read it, have you read his book is on writing?
Mm-mm.
Read it, because it's partly biography, but he also gets into the intricacies of telling a story, but not in a boring technical way. And he talks about, he starts out with an idea, and he thinks he might know where the story's going. But ultimately, whether it ends up there or not is up to the characters and the story as he writes it. And if it ends up going in a different direction, well, that's where it's got to go. The story tells you where it has to go. And that idea of, and I think that's why so many of his books work, is just that organic development of the story.
Yeah.
He's
Explains
not
why he's so
forcing it.
prolific because
Yeah.
he's less likely to have the writer's block because he's not fighting.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
That's
that book
yeah.
is fascinating. And it's short,
Yeah.
but
I'll
it.
have to add it to my list. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I love like seeing his cameos and I don't know. He's been such a big creative, like just shaping so much of what I consume over the years.
Hmm.
It's pretty fascinating. Like it's like born just at the right time for that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And I got into reading like Clive Barker when I was a teenager, and I keep wanting to go
Oh,
back
he's another one.
and read some of it because
Fascinating.
there was some of that stuff that I read that like I think as an adult, I would understand it differently than I did as a
Hmm.
teen, and I think that that would be interesting. But yeah, like like when Hellraiser the movie came out, I was like so excited because it was like the book was and the movie were so well done, you know.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and then yeah, there was a couple other horror authors I liked, and then I got into science fiction, like hard science fiction, that's horrific too, and like in a different way,
Yeah. It
And
is though. Yeah.
yeah, and I love that, love the challenge of getting my brain around some of the concepts that these guys write about. And the thing that's crazy, like one of my favorite authors, Stephen Baxter, he is an engineer. And so he takes like his knowledge of things and then applies them to these concepts that have been studied as potential things in our future by other scientists and incorporates them. And so like after I read the book and my brain is like, I go and I read about this concept that could be a thing someday. And I'm just like,
Yep.
it's there's something about that's really cool.
Yeah,
Um,
I've had similar experiences. I cannot remember the book. But it dealt with this idea of quantum immortality. And I went back after that, I went back and I started researching it and just like going down the rabbit hole. And the idea of, the whole idea of energy not being, created or destroyed, it just transferred and all of that stuff. Plus, the idea that um, we are energy
hmm
essentially in a meat sack,
Yeah.
and what happens to that. And but yeah, no, that stuff and that stuff I find fascinating. And like I had a conversation with somebody 2 weeks ago about simulation theory and all of that stuff. And it's just like the idea that, and it started with, I read a article about how scientists are, they say that their neuroscientists are feel like they're no closer to figuring out where consciousness exists in the brain and where it comes from than they were 50 years ago. Like it's something that they're never gonna, that like they think in some ways they might never figure it out.
Yeah.
Um, and I just was like, my brain was like, I wonder if we're in a simulation. What if the simulation was created for that exact purpose? Because the, minds that are well beyond ours that created this simulation don't know where consciousness comes from either. So they created the simulation to figure it out. And then I got into, because your consciousness is just a organic algorithm and that evolves over time. And it's like, what happens when we die? And I thought, well, if we are just a program, a piece of code in a simulation, well, when you're a programmer, if you stop using a piece of code, you don't necessarily delete it. You put it somewhere and store it.
hmm
What if that's us? What if we get put some when we die, our bits get put in storage. and then eventually get reintroduced into the simulation. I'm thinking, well, that would explain reincarnation and past lives because your brain, your algorithm would evolve over time. And so that like and then you have like eventually you would have people that you've met in previous lives that your algorithms sort of meshed. And while you don't have all of the topside data of what, everything that you did, you still have that underlying algorithm that somehow brings the two of you back together every time or most times. So it's like we got into this rabbit hole of this whole thing. And I'm just like, I'm not so sure I feel good right now. Like,
I mean,
I
that's
like,
like
well,
some
if you
big, that's a big,
want to have an
that's
existential crisis, there you go.
right. That's trying to fit, that's trying to see infinity, right? It's like, it's
Hmm.
huge. The thing you said about the energy, I have this thing about how I want to be buried after I die. Like, I don't want to be cremated. I
Hmm.
want my body just put into the ground, no chemicals or anything, so that I can be broken down into food and give energy, right? So that I
Hmm.
can continue to participate in the universe in that way. And it's like, I know that like when a body is cremated, the energy is just converted into something else, but that's not how I want to participate in the universe after I die.
Right.
Like, and
Yeah.
I like that's really important to me. I might not get that choice because it's very expensive to do that, but like I would I would love to know that my molecules and all that shit are
Yeah.
helping
Yeah.
and
I have, yeah, I have similar feelings about that because it's like, you know, both my grandparents were uh cremated. Well, my grandfather for the longest time was not, we didn't spread his ashes anywhere. My grandmother kept him in a bucket in the living room.
a literal bucket, like a Home Depot
Oh,
bucket.
it was an antique wooden bucket that had the urn inside of it.
Okay,
So it
okay.
wasn't just like ashes in the bucket. But that's
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 something my family would do.
yeah. It reminds me of the joke I told online that people were like, "Oh my God, dude, is one of my favorite childhood memories was making sandcastles with my grandfather. That was until my mother took the urn away.
I like it.
That's but he didn't get that. Like at least if you spread the ashes, you're dispensing his energy, that kind of
Right.
thing. But no, he sat in a bucket.
Yeah.
He sat in a bucket, and I'm like, I don't want to do
Well,
that.
I would argue
I don't want to be on
when
his
he was,
shelf.
yeah, when he was burned, his energy was converted, and what came from the burning, that's actually his energy being dispersed. The
Right.
ashes are just dormant at that point, right? But you could like
Yeah.
feed a tree or something with them.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I mean,
yeah,
there are certainly things, but and then it's what's funny is one of my grandfather's favorite sayings was, as long as the ground is under my feet and not 6 feet over my head, I'm doing all right. Well, the joke's on us. He is literally sitting on my shelf, so he's still
still
above
doing all
ground.
right. Yeah.
He's still doing all right. He's above ground. Cheeky bastard.
That's so funny. Yeah,
But yeah, it's I don't know that whole the buried without I mean essentially you're kind of composting yourself
exactly.
in that scenario, which is
I mean, it would be a lot better
that's
for the
perfect.
planet in general if we did that.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I
yeah,
mean, if you look at like these cemeteries where it's essentially this whole field of concrete vaults with metal caskets in them, hermetically sealed. I mean, you're not going anywhere,
right.
you
And
don't get to
it's a
participate.
waste
It's
of land. It
so
forces,
much.
it sort of sterilizes the land because it's just like grass and it's to me it's bizarre. I don't know. I Death is scary, but it's also natural and I feel like we're like afraid to participate in what the planet's doing. And so we
Hmm.
have these weird things to avoid it and help us comfort ourselves about the unknown and all that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't, I'm scared about all that and I can't control it, but I also want to do good later. I don't want to
Hmm.
participate in that system and,
Yeah.
you know, but
Yeah.
yeah.
That is a weird thing. I mean, especially with getting older, um, I actually find that I don't think about it as much as I did when I was younger.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know why that is. I don't know if it just doesn't, I'm like just accepted it that it's like it's just gonna happen and I don't have control over it. So I might as well just live, spend the time that I would spend worried about it, I'll spend doing something that I want to do, you
Yeah.
know. And there's the whole idea of like as a creative person, it's like, why am I creative? Why do I want to make art? Is it just for the joy of it? Or is it because I want something that's going to outlast me? Something that's
Yeah.
going to say that I was here.
Yeah.
And because if you think about it, 100 years from now, who's going to know you existed?
Right. Yeah. I don't
It-
like that. To me, it's like all the content I make is just going to be in a big pile with everybody else, and it's not going to be any different than if I was just a dead body in the ground, right? Like the chances of my stuff standing out is so minuscule. That's why I just do things for me, for my joy in the
Mhm.
moment. And if for some reason some of that joy translated into something that people got to see 50 years or 100 years from now, that's cool. But I just don't, there's so many people, and especially the internet, there's so much information, like I think maybe aliens will appreciate it later more than we will.
Probably, probably. Yeah, it's one of the things that like I think one of the things that really helped me just not even think about the whole mortality thing is actually finding out how like the odds of you being born and then the odds of you being born you are astronomical. Like it's like the odds of you being born at all are one in like 400 trillion, and then the odds of you being born you are like you know, you need the exponential numbers
Yeah.
after it because it's so huge.
Yeah.
So, the idea that, you know, uh, you are so unique as a person. Um, Everyone is, and it's a matter of, to me, just like discovering that and understanding that. It's like, and but I found some people that idea really bothers them because it sort of feeds into the idea that, that this is all just kind of freaking random,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's like, because it takes away that whole, meaning of life. And I actually was like, you know what, that kind of, I think it makes it more special because
Yeah.
your life only has the meaning that you apply to it.
Right. I have had one of those lives that's kind of like series of unfortunate events, and it's all predominantly been things that were not related to bad decisions on my part. It's just kind of like the universe just kept throwing the shit at me. They're like, she can handle it.
Yeah.
So for me, the randomness helps me accept my reality, because if there was like what did I do wrong? If there were, like it would be really hard not to take it personally that the shit keeps happening to me unless it's random. So it's,
Yep.
but for me, like I always have just had this really strong feeling that everything we do matters. So like I'm an extremely present person. Like when I choose to do things, if I'm interacting with people's stuff online, if I'm, having a conversation, whatever, I'm extremely present. And because it matters. And if somebody's going to engage in my stuff, I engage back, because not just because I want them to engage again, but because they took 3 seconds of their life that they're never going to fucking get back. That's 3 seconds closer
Yeah.
to death, right? They
Yep.
gave that to me. I'm gonna fucking give it back. And and I've had friends be like, "Oh, you're overthinking it, blah blah blah, all this stuff." And I'm just like, "No, it all fucking matters, and everything we do has some impact, even if it's just on us. Like
Yep.
it all matters, and I navigate my life that way, with intent and being present, and that's part of why I'm so antisocial because it uses a lot of energy. But most people don't do that. And you can see it in the way, like going back to the social media stuff, you can see like people follow thousands of people because there is no expectation put on themselves to be present with anyone. Most
Hmm.
people aren't even good at being present in their in-person relationships because it's not a skill they've really learned.
Right.
And it's fascinating to me because I feel like they're missing out on this, like these conversations where we're having, where we're talking about this stuff.
Yep.
It's like that stuff that they're not, like, I feel like I can feel that it goes into my brain and I can feel it in my skin, right? There's like an
Hmm.
experience attached to it, and it's like they don't have that. And so there's all this information they're missing, and it kind of just like I always feel like I'm a little bit out of sync with other people's realities because of that. Do you know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Like
Yeah,
I kind of
absolutely.
went off to the side of the tangent, but it was, yeah.
No, I completely agree. And it's like you see like one of the things that I've said a lot over the years is we need to stop because it feels like everybody is rushing from Monday to Friday as fast as they can and living only 2 days a week. And it's like,
If that.
yeah, there's
When I was
five
working,
other
it wasn't
days
like
there.
that. Like
Yeah. It's like there are 5 other days there, and I see it every day on my way to work. Somebody is flying down the highway, 75, 80 miles an hour. Why?
yeah,
I mean, unless there's a medical emergency, nobody's probably gonna die if you don't
yeah.
get to where you get to that 2 minutes faster.
I mean,
And it's so
I used to go
crazy.
fast because it was fun. But
Right. There's nothing wrong with that. I totally agree with you there.
yeah. But yeah,
It's
when
like,
you're stuck in traffic and someone is like trying to go fast and they're cutting people and they're like they're trying to push everyone out of the way so they can get there faster so that they can waste more of their life. And
mhm,
I hate when I was a teenager, like I'm gonna say around 13 is when I started to see the trap, right? That we're
yeah.
living in. And I was so angry and I would like pace. It was like that injustice because I have that very strong like and the injustice sensitivity thing. And I was so upset. It was like, what is the fucking point? You can't even buy property and just go live on it because you have to pay taxes. You have to participate in the trap no matter what you fucking do, unless you're super, super rich where you can pay somebody else to do it and you can forget that you're participating in the trap. Like
Yep.
it made I was just so mad. And so I never like chased a career. I would just do whatever as long as, it let me kind of pay my bills and stuff and I could still
Yep.
do other stuff. And then my last job became all consuming. Just it like I worked, like a 50-hour week felt like a vacation. It was that kind of job. And I couldn't
Mhm.
like go offline because my boss would flip out at me. And it was I had never had a job. I had always had jobs where like I was really good at it. I worked a lot, but like went home and I did other stuff. And I had fun at work. So it didn't feel like I was wasting my life, like
Yeah.
and this job just was like, wow. And then I got sick. It made me sick. Like my body just went, no, we're not doing that anymore. And that was kind of the beginning, right? But it like I had never even had like I'd seen other people participating in the rat race, and I never really got it. I didn't understand how it could suck you in, right? Until I
Hmm.
was in that situation because I had always managed to kind of skirt it and get these other jobs that kind of gave me, even if I sometimes I'd have a day job and then I'd have like side gigs, because I wasn't getting paid enough. So I would do bookkeeping for people or whatever, but it's still like I could still go ride my motorcycle and play video games and hang out with my son and do all the things, right? And then I just got this job where I could, it was like I was trapped where I couldn't find another job, but I couldn't quit because I needed to pay rent. And it was like, and then all of a sudden I was just in that trap and I was just like, "Ugh." And it just sucked. I don't think I was very present during that time. I couldn't find my
Hmm.
joy. I stopped taking pictures.
Yeah.
I was one of those people, like my camera was like my social stim, so it was easier for me to go into social situations. I put and it had been that way for over 20 years. Everybody knew me as a person that always had my SLR in hand. I put my camera down and stopped listening to music. I just
Oof.
it just all like went away, right?
Yeah.
And it after I got sick and then I went on medical leave, I was so relieved. It didn't matter that my life was falling apart. I was so relieved not being that trap. I could live in this bullshit over that,
Yeah.
right? And but it still took a few years for all that to start to come back, start to listen to music again and find my flame, and
Hmm.
be able to enjoy things and
Yeah.
be present
It's
again.
right. It's so insidious of how it just slowly kind of pulls you in to the point where you don't even realize that you're in it until it's too late. And
Yeah,
then the struggle to get out of it, like getting out of it, it's like for you, you said you had to get sick to
right.
get out of it and realize what you were missing. And it's like my neighbors, I don't know how they what they think of me, but like I don't have a golf course lawn. And there's a reason why I don't have a golf course lawn because I don't care.
Yeah.
I have a lawn that is pretty much being taken over by clover, which I'm completely
That's
happy
good.
with. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
completely happy with. My neighbors hate it. Um, but there's also
I judge people that have lawns. Like I literally am
I do
like, you're
too.
part of the problem.
But it's like you look at how much time people spend like you s- like okay, you've worked 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. And then Saturday, what are you doing? Yard work,
Mowing.
mowing the lawn, and it's like you're mowing the lawn, and not only are you mowing the lawn, you're beating the living hell out of your body.
Right.
And it's like, so maybe you get Saturday or Sunday, or you have a little bit after Saturday, but you're so freaking tired after you've mowed the lawn and done all of that crap that you don't have the motivation to do anything. So now you've lost another day.
Right.
I don't, one, for a long time, I was paying somebody to mow my lawn because I had no interest in doing it. And then when my arthritis first started to rear its ugly head, and I realized that I couldn't afford a riding mower and I couldn't walk behind the push mower anymore. I definitely had to pay somebody to do it. And now it's like every 2 weeks, somebody comes and mows. No big deal.
Yeah.
And it's just, but it's like, I think in a lot of ways, people prioritize their time wrong.
They prioritize it based on like the what they've been brainwashed, what society told them through
Right.
their exposures growing up and shit, what's normal. And people worry so much about being normal when that's just fucking all bullshit. It's just
I
total
have a
bullshit.
story. I have a story. I hope you're going to find this funny. Talking about, like what's normal, what's expected. So when I was growing up, my grandmother, my mother, my aunt, my friends' mothers always had a teapot on the stove. Always had water in it, always had a teapot on the stove. So when I bought a house and I have the stove, I got a teapot and I put water in it and I put it on the stove. Not even understanding why. Like I never boiled water, you know. So probably about 9 years ago, I was dating this woman and she came over and um, we were, we went out to the backyard and sat for a little while and smoked uh smoked a joint and we went back inside and I was like, I'm not feeling this. I don't, like don't feel stoned or anything. Well, I all of a sudden started this same story. My grandmother had one, my mother had one, and I grabbed the teapot off the stove and I'm literally holding it in front of me going, I don't even drink tea. Why do I have this? And she looks at me and she goes, Oh, sweetie, you are so stoned. But from that day forward, I put that damn teapot away and it has not been on my stove since. Why did I have it? Because my mother had one. My grandmother had, everybody
It
had
was
one.
it
So I
was
had to
like part
have
of the
it.
kitchen tool set. It was,
Right.
yeah,
Even if it was a tool that I was never going to use.
that's so funny.
And
That
now I have an electric kettle
yeah, I have an
that
electric
I use.
kettle.
I use it for ramen and stuff like that. But it's like, I don't drink tea. I don't drink coffee. What the hell do I
Yeah.
have this thing for?
I didn't get an electric kettle until I started drinking coffee because I do pour overs and stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't grow up around people that drank tea or anything. I'm trying to think if I have anything like that because I diverged from a, like cleaning supplies and tools. Like when I became an adult, I never used the stuff my parents did. Like I was just talking to a friend about this the other day that she uses Windex for everything because that's what her parents did. And I was like, I couldn't ever stand the smell of any of the cleaning stuff that my parents used. So I went and looked for eco-friendly ways to do it without all the chemicals. And yeah, like I can't, yeah, I just can't, I can't, I'm not, it might come to me later, but I'm just trying to think of like, because there are things that I was normalized to that are not nor necessarily great, but they're trauma things. They're not
Mm.
like a teapot, right?
Yeah.
I always got tools when I needed them. Like I don't buy
Hmm.
things just to have them. I've never had the money to buy things and preemptively. So, um, it might, yeah, like I got an iron as a wedding gift, and I was like, "What the fuck am I gonna do with that? I don't fucking iron my clothes. I don't fucking like." It's, so we got married like the day after my birthday, and then we got married in Jamaica, and then we came back and had a party, and so all of my presents for the wedding were also my birthday presents, and so I was given presents that would make me a good wife, and then my ex got stuff too, but it was all like art supplies. And so I was super salty. I was like, this is some sexist bullshit, and I'm never using that.
Yeah,
I'm like, if
right.
I have to iron it, I'm not buying it. Like, but I'm pretty sure that was given to me because they thought it was like this normal thing you should have. And
Everybody has an iron. Everybody
I
has an
do not.
ironing board.
I hang
That's
dry
like,
most of my
what?
stuff, and
I do too.
if you hang dry them, it's not, they're usually fine. Like,
Hmm.
and I'm just not going to wear anything that needs to be crisp. It's just, that's weird. It's probably
Yeah.
uncomfortable. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, yeah, I was trying to think. And I'm really bad at like social scripts and stuff.
Yeah.
Like people are like, "Hi, how are you?" Like where you do like the polite things on the phone. Those all stress me out, so I'm really bad at
Yeah.
them. And so I think I don't know. Maybe I'm just bad at like. There's gotta be something. I don't know. It'll come to me. I don't know. Even now, when people DM me and they try to start a conversation with me by just saying, "Hi, I hope you're having a good day." I don't respond because they didn't give me anything to respond to.
Right.
Like,
Right.
and I'm not trying to be an asshole, but it stresses me out trying to think of something to say when there's nothing there. I also don't think about my days as good or bad, right? My days are just days, and both good and bad things happen every single day. The day I
Yeah.
got hit by a car and broke my leg, I got to fly in a helicopter and they sang the Airwolf song. A lot of people just say they had a bad day because it broke their leg.
That's
I,
amazing.
but I was 12 years old. I had a broken leg. That part's like, that was not a great thing.
Yeah.
And then, but I got in the helicopter. It was fucking black. It was like most of the emergency helicopters are not black. And I was like, do you guys know
Right.
the Airwolf song? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, would you sing it for me? And they're like, absolutely. And it was the fucking
That's
best. Like,
that's amazing. That's worth breaking a leg for.
right? So like I can't, like I just don't think about things that way. And then I feel so like cornered when people push these statements that they've never really thought about what they mean to them. They're just saying them
Mhm.
because that's what you're supposed to say. But then I feel like I'm in the position of having to do the work to translate the meaning that they should just say what they mean. Hey, I'm
Yep.
texting you just to say hi. That
Yeah.
would be, I'd be like, okay, hi. That would be valid.
Yep.
Like, say
Yep.
what you mean. Don't fucking wrap it up in something I have to like decompile.
That is something that I struggle with. Um, People, especially like I feel it stresses me out if somebody sends me a text message and I don't know how to respond to it. Like I don't have anything to respond to it. Or I sit there and I go, should I say this? Or should I say this? But then there's the whole expectations. And that's something I really struggle with is what people's expectations are of me when it comes to communication. And I fail hard with that a lot. And it's actually cost me friendships and
Yeah.
it kind of sucks. But it's something I try to learn from it every day, but it's almost like it's to me it's almost that doing that is almost like a form of masking
Yeah.
because I'm trying to conform to this idea.
Right.
Like, do you know how long it took me to figure out that when people ask you, "Hey, how are you? Good morning, how are you doing?" They don't want to know.
They're gonna find out. I'm gonna
They
tell them, don't fucking ask me that unless you want to know. And if you didn't want to know, you won't ask again. Like,
Yes, that like I told somebody that I was like I'm just going to start my New Year's resolution a few years ago was to just if somebody asks me how I am, I tell them. And I would have to say 9 times out of 10 they didn't actually want to know and they don't ask anymore.
interesting. Mine's kind of the opposite. I've found to be about 75% of the time they seem kind of surprised and then they start talking back. And then we have a
Hmm.
conversation that they weren't anticipating having. So that's kind of interesting. It's probably just like different circles or whatever, but like,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
it's
and
it's
I don't know if I might be overestimating, I don't know, but it
yeah,
is it's like the people we are socially programmed to say, "How are you doing?" And then we are also socially programmed to go, I'm doing all right, or I'm fine, or I'm good,
yeah,
when you're not.
right.
Especially even in like the uh male space where it's again not talking about your feelings. If you have something going on at home or you don't talk about it. You keep your mouth
Right.
shut because nobody we're taught that nobody wants to hear it.
Right. Yeah, I was
And
raised with that too. So I'm very like
yep.
I had to like, kind of unprogram some of that and I'm still working on it. Like when I make the posts on TikTok, my brain will just tell me that I shouldn't do that because it doesn't matter. I've never talked about most of the trauma that I've been through because I feel like it doesn't
Hmm.
matter as much as everybody else's. It's just it's a, work in progress. But
Yeah. Yep.
yeah, the
That's
the
something I struggle with too.
yeah,
We
the
had
social scripts are like when people say they're sorry, not like when they offend you. That's okay. So if somebody offends me or does something that bothers me, and I'm like, hey, this bothered me, I always say it with it as an explanation that leaves it open for them to explain themselves because it could be a
Mhm.
misunderstanding. I'm not going to
Sure.
make an accusation. Most people just say, "Oh, I'm sorry," and they don't say anything else. There's no opportunity for conversation. I don't get to learn about them. I don't feel like they understand me. I feel like I've been placated, and I see placation as a form of lying. So, it bothers me. That's like a red flag. If somebody says, "Oh, I'm sorry," and they don't follow up with anything else, or they don't give me a well-structured apology, I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
done. I don't care. But when people like I mentioned earlier, like when I say something and it makes somebody else uncomfortable and their response is to say, "Oh, I'm sorry." Um, I feel like that's way more about them than about me. I never feel comforted by that. I never feel heard or anything. I do not. I hate it, especially like if I'm going like when my cat died, I specifically put on my post when I talked about it, do not say you're sorry. Like
Yeah.
this is a boundary. Don't talk about the fucking Rainbow Bridge bullshit and don't tell me you're sorry. because that's not about me. That's not what I need to hear. I'm telling you how to take care of me. I'm making it really fucking easy. And they
Hmm.
still got like
Oh
four or
yeah.
five responses. They can't fucking help themselves. And it doesn't, the problem for me, I think there's the social agreement with these statements that they mean certain things, but when you ask somebody, what did you mean when you said that? It's it varies. So the
Hmm.
meaning that everybody thinks is an agreed meaning doesn't exist. It's different based on whatever you're assuming it means, based on your exposure to things. And for
Yeah.
me, I hear the placeholder for the real meaning, and I don't know how to unpack the real meaning because they haven't given it to me. And so I
Yeah.
get stressed out because I can't rely on an assumption. I'm like, I think they're trying to comfort me, but I don't really fucking know what that means. And then I just get
Yeah.
uncomfortable. I feel hurt because they didn't put the effort into saying what they mean. And the thing is it's not just a neurodivergent thing, because if you go to therapy and learn how to communicate and learn how to be compassionate and learn how to empathize, they break that down and say, don't say that shit. Like
Yeah.
it's explicitly part of good communication to say what you mean. And
Hmm.
so I'm like, I'm not being unreasonable, but the whole world seems to think that I'm being unreasonable. A lot of people stop
Yeah.
talking to me because I tell them what I need. And
Yeah.
it's not a
Yeah.
lot. I'm pretty easy.
Yeah, it's yeah, and I've run into that too, and it's one of those things that, like when people say I'm sorry, my immediate reaction is, "Fuck, are you sorry for? It's not your fault."
Yeah, what did you do?
Yeah,
Like,
you didn't do this.
right?
You didn't steal my car and crash it into a
Do
tree.
you ever do you ever say that? Because sometimes I do,
Oh, all the time,
just to be
all the time.
obtuse. Like,
Like, that's not your fault.
yeah.
That's my general go-to, and it is so. And but I also realize that I have had to unlearn how to not do that myself and say I'm sorry. And I have found that when you have a moment where you want to say something and say I'm sorry, stop yourself. And sometimes it is better to say, "Oh my God, that's awful," than it is to say I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah.
Because you're
Yeah.
recognizing what that person is dealing with. When somebody's pet dies, it's, that's awful, but then there's the thing of, do you relate, your own experience to it, without how, and
Yeah.
how do you do that without, I think a lot of people are like, I know how you feel. When I lost, my cat or whatever, it was really difficult. Um,
Yeah. I
and
think
it's
I think the
it's
trick to
hard.
that is because I have not really gotten too many complaints from people about trying to make it about me, and I always use relational stuff.
Hmm.
I had
I do
one
too.
person recently that she went off on me, but it ends up that it was about she had made a rule that on her Facebook page you could only talk about her. If you want to talk about yourself, you had to do it in DM. I wasn't aware of that rule. I would have respected it, even though it's really different. Um,
That's a unique one.
yeah, but she consistently disregarded my boundaries because I don't like unsolicited advice, and she kept sending me
Hmm.
these pages of shit that I don't fucking care about, and so I was already kind of done with her. But she was an exception. But normally, so what I do is I acknowledge the other person and what they said without including myself, so they get that acknowledgement, and then I give the relational story. And what I see people doing sometimes is they just start talking about themselves
Yes.
and they don't connect it. And that connection, it's like when I interrupt people all the time. I'm a monster. But I always come back. I go, hey, what were you
I do too.
saying? And
Yep.
and that right there, like I learned because when I didn't I had to learn to do that, right? And I learned over the years I would check in with people because my brain ruminates after conversations, and I'll be like, oh, super. I don't get anxious before. I'm fucked up after. Like,
Yep.
so I go back and reassure myself by checking in and being like, hey, I hope you felt heard. I know I was talking a lot and stuff like that. And they're like, no, 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 you came back to it and blah blah blah. I feel like, And I'm like, okay, good. And I learned from that that's kind of that there's tricks, there's ways to do the neurodivergent communication thing without,
Hmm.
you know, because I do have friends that are on the spectrum that they will just start talking about themselves. And it annoys me because I need the
Yeah.
acknowledgement, especially like as a woman that's mostly been in male spaces. I'm very used to like being run over. If I like when I make a post that's supposed to be funny, the average guy is going to come in and make a joke on my joke. They're not going to ever laugh at my joke. They're not going to acknowledge my joke. They're going to take and run me over to make it theirs. And I fucking
Yeah.
hate it. I don't give them
Yep.
any engagement. I'm just like if they laughed at my joke and added their joke, I'm cool. But they
Hmm.
never acknowledge it. And then I'm like, you're a problem. It's just that's like a huge pet peeve for me. So the acknowledgement part's really important. And it doesn't take
Yeah.
much. It's only,
No, it doesn't.
you know,
It doesn't.
just a few
But
words usually.
yeah. And it's I mean it is, but it's definitely I know for me it's been very hard to unlearn that. The other thing that I have, when you mentioned about unsolicited advice, one of the things that I have tried very hard to force myself to do is acknowledge the person and what they're dealing with. They've come to me, they're talking to me about it. Acknowledge that what they're doing, and then if I think that I have something to offer, it's I have a thought. Do you want my advice? Or do you want to hear what my opinion? And if they say no, I shut my mouth.
Right.
And, it's like so I used to, it seems like I have this circle of friends that all used to, do photography professionally. Um, I used to do it. And last summer, when my youngest daughter came to visit from the UK, we spent 3, 4 weeks, but we went out and she had just gotten a nice camera, an SLR, and she, was experimenting with it. And she would show me the pictures. And I would say, this is really good. And I try to point out the positive stuff. And I would look at her and go, do you want me to give you suggestions on what you could do better? Sometimes, and I told her, I said, you're not going to hurt my feelings if you say no. And it got to the point where she would say, "Yeah, Dad, tell me what," or she would come to me and say, "Hey, what can I do better?" And that has been so refreshing, not just for the people that I interact with, but for myself,
Yeah.
where I don't feel like I'm like I have to say something, like I have to do something. I'm, you know, I my I've said recently that my love language is helping.
Right. Mine is
That's what I
too.
do. That's what I do. If I can help somebody, I want to help them. It's, and I found that for me, um, I have to be very careful with that because
Yeah.
there's two things that I've learned is one is not everybody wants your help, and not everybody wants the help that you can offer.
Hmm.
Like they want to, they may not want you to solve the problem, but they may want you to do something else. You have to help them the way they want to be helped, not the way you
Exactly.
think they should be helped, you
Right.
know. Um, but it's like, yeah, I mean, it's like, that's for me. And the complication that I run into sometimes is being a guy, um, so often. And because I find myself interacting with so many women, it's, they look at my help and go, "What does he want?"
Hmm.
And I think that extends beyond the male female dynamic. Um, but it is that this it's one of those things that I've had to learn about that ingrained distrust. Um, and to
I mean, it's not even ingrained, it's fucking earned. Like,
yes,
you
absolutely,
know, it's,
yeah.
I mean, even within the last year, I've had experiences like that where I've had a guy like help me with stuff and then they come to resent me and I'm like, but if you had told me you had expectations attached to this, I would have told you not to fucking do that. Like,
Yeah.
it's not, I like to just help people. And there have been people that I have helped in ways that were huge. And when I was done helping them, we never talked again. And it never bothered, it doesn't, I was happy I
No,
helped them. It just doesn't,
no.
if I need something, I feel it's my responsibility to communicate with that other person that I need that thing, but I still
Yeah.
feel like that thing should not be attached to the help that I'm providing. It's, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yep.
yeah, I was
My
gonna say
help is
about
not transactional.
exactly the thing I was gonna say about like where you were seeing the photography and then you're like, oh, that's good, but would you like that would feel like a criticism to me. That would set me off. I wouldn't, it would stress
Yeah.
me out. I wouldn't want to show you
Yeah.
anything after that. It's like if I needed help to learn to do something, I would like to know that somebody's available and I can ask them like if I get stuck. Cause
Hmm.
I am very, like, I'm super hands-on. So I love to just fuck up and then figure it out.
Hmm.
And then when I get stuck, I go and research it. And sometimes if I can't find the answer, I got to go find someone that knows how to do the thing. And then I'll come to them and be like, hey, I'm stuck on this
Yeah.
particular thing. But if I felt like somebody was looking at my stuff being like, well, it's wrong, like because it would like my brain would
Yeah.
be like, I'm not showing you anymore. Thank you for listening. Join me next week for the continuation of this conversation. Want to support my creative chaos and get access to exclusive content? Check out my Patreon. Have a great week.